Barry Gardiner is the Labour MP for Brent West, who was a minister under then Tony Blair, now Sir Tony Blair. Thanks for coming on, Barry. I wonder what you make of your old boss's involvement in this.
Well, look, Tom, I think it's very difficult for any former British Prime Minister to serve alongside Vladimir Putin on any board. But the thing that I would really like to add to what Tony Blair said, and I agree with much of what she did say, is that we need to chart a way forward that respects Palestinians' right to self-determination. And there is no representation from the Palestinians on this board. Quite the contrary, Netanyahu is opposed to a two-state solution. He's undermined the UN and destroyed the UNRWA building in East Jerusalem. He's deregistered so many of the international NGOs that are trying to bring humanitarian relief to Gaza. And of course, as Nanubhai said, he's wanted as an international criminal by the International Criminal Court. So it is very difficult to see how a board that holds both Netanyahu and Putin can be called a peace board.
I take your point, of course, about self-determination, but what if that self-determination ends up being for a violent jihadist organisation to be in charge in Gaza? That cannot be allowed to continue.
No, of course. Look, and nobody's saying it should be Hamas. Of course it shouldn't. But you know, there are legitimate representatives of the Palestinian people in Fatah. There have been long-standing negotiations. People like Saeb Erekat, who was negotiating this, 25 years ago, who understand the complexities of it, but who can actually bring the Palestinian voice to the table. And I think it's absolutely essential that, there should be no decision about Palestine without Palestine. So I do worry that what's happening here is that Trump is sort of setting this up, ignoring the United Nations and the existing mechanisms that the international community has.
Although those haven't worked. I mean, they just don't work. As Zelensky has pointed to today, I think, about Europe being a talking shop and not doing any, not committing to any action.
Tom, that's right. We're in that situation now where we have three major powers emerging across the globe: the US, Russia, and China. All of whom have people who have dictatorial tendencies at their head. And I thought Mark Carney's speech at Davos was absolutely superb in that he did chart a way forward for those middle-ranking countries, as I think he called them, and the way that we should respond, and said, look, compliance with these authoritarian demands that Trump is making doesn't guarantee you safety. It doesn't guarantee that. All it does is you see this sort of sycophancy where people are vying to be the favored child, but that's actually compliance with what is wrong. And what Carney was saying was, look, we need to develop our liaisons with other countries who are like-minded, where we can engage from strength with them and try and create what you're right, the United Nations has so far failed to do.
Well, does that mean that Blair is complying with the wrong thing by being on this board?
I think the board is doomed to failure. That's the first thing. But I think I can understand why somebody who's as astute and a political player as Blair might want to find out, why is it that Trump has invited Putin onto this board? What sort of backroom deal is going on between Putin and Trump? And it seems to me that what's happening here is that Trump is saying to Putin, in effect, look, you can have your sphere of influence in Europe. I will withdraw my focus from NATO and Europe to focus on China and the Pacific. And we know that America sees China as the big threat, and that's what he wants to do. And it's in America's interests, of course, to have Europeans saying, oh, we've got to fight this out. We're worried about an invasion from Putin. We have to increase our armaments. 56% of all the armaments that the European countries buy, they buy from America. So it's great business for America to stoke up a conflict between Russia and the European Union and other European countries, in the knowledge that it can only do good business for American industries, the armaments industry. So I think there are wider issues here that Trump is playing with. And I think this so-called peace board is simply a very small counter as part of those strategic moves.